Go inside the Crimson Tide with your hosts Rodney Orr and Gary Harris, keeping you informed on everything Alabama. Tider Insider TV, brought to you by Visit Tuscaloosa.
And hello again, everybody, and welcome into the latest edition of Tider Insider Television, presented by Visit Tuscaloosa. Go to visittuscaloosa.com. I'm Gary Harris. Rodney Orr from TiderInsider.com joins me, and we're going to talk Alabama football recruiting off the top. The Tide is rising. Alabama flipping one of the top quarterback prospects in the class of 2026. Jet Tamala, who committed to Iowa State in April, flipped to Alabama this morning. The four-star out of Omaha, Nebraska, was an Elite 11 finalist. He went to Millard South High School, led them to state championship. He also had offers from Iowa, Missouri, Virginia Tech, Washington State, and others. He's got the size, 6'4", over 200 pounds. Does most of his damage from the pocket, but he's athletic now, very athletic. I mean, can run, can jump, but he is accurate as well. He set records in Nebraska's Class A, state records for completions, 250, passing yards, 3,664, passing touchdowns, 47 in his junior season. Here's what's most impressive to me, Rodney, just 3 interceptions all season long. He is the first quarterback in the class of 2026 for Alabama as a commit, and this is a guy been on the radar, made an unofficial visit, and you could kind of see this one trending a little bit, even though he had not been back for an official visit yet. Rodney, you've been tracking this. You could kind of see Iowa State was kind of hanging on for dear life. I think they kind of saw the handwriting on the wall.
Yeah, you know, and let me say this too, Gary. There's some people, I know there was some response, well, they don't play great high-level high school football in the state of Nebraska. You mentioned Iowa State. Matt Campbell's done a fantastic job of evaluating quarterbacks. If you doubt Kalen DeBoer and Ryan Grubb and Nick Sheridan. So, I mean, those are 4 of the best talent evaluators in terms of quarterbacks in the country. Jet Tamala, you mentioned his size, you mentioned his stats. Like you said, 47 touchdown passes this last season. Only 3 interceptions, completed right at 70% of his passes for nearly 4,000 yards. Led his team to a state championship, which is what you like to see. I mean, it's the first state championship in school since in the last 15 years for that school. So he's got all the tools.
And you know what I like about him? He's a basketball player.
Yeah, he can jump. He's a dunking machine. If you watch that video.
Listen, I've seen this a lot in years of covering ball. You don't have to be a good basketball player to be a good football player, but the athleticism needed to be a good basketball player really speaks well when you convert it to football. So, Rodney, I really like him. The reason I'm going out on a limb here is because I know how Alabama fans are, and they see Iowa State commit, and they see the offer list, which is good but not spectacular. Even though he was an Elite 11 finalist, there are a lot of quarterbacks rated ahead of him, and they immediately kind of hit me up on social media about, can Alabama not do better than this? This guy is a player, and this is a guy Alabama targeted and made the offer to, knowing that if he accepted it, they were taking him.
Well, I'll give you a little history lesson. Matt Campbell, a few years ago, recruited a guy named Brock Purdy out of Arizona.
He was pretty good.
That Brian Dable, when Brian Dable was here, of course, the New York Giants head coach was here as the offensive coordinator, really coveted, really liked Brock Purdy, and he came on a visit here. So these guys, they know a little bit about evaluating quarterbacks.
Yeah, and Nick Saban had the final call on Brock Purdy and decided not to offer him.
Well, and again, you had a lot of
and they had a lot of great quarterbacks too.
You had Jalen Hurts was still here and others.
But he didn't have the critical factors. But this guy does. He's got the height, he's got the weight, he's got the athleticism. So nice pickup for Alabama. They've got their quarterback. I think, Rodney, because I don't feel like they're going to take another quarterback in this class, or could they?
They could. Now, again, because you kind of look at the numbers, Gary, I think it's possible. I'm not saying that they are, or that I have any kind of feeling that they will, but when you look at the numbers and the way the portal operates and all of those types of things, you might take another one.
All right, well, let's move on, because there was another wave of recruits in Tuscaloosa over the weekend, and they wanted to see what Alabama has to offer. And this past weekend's visitors, they were down in numbers just a little bit to the previous two, and Rodney, you said at TiderInsider.com, I like the previous 2 weekends. Of course, got a commitment last week. You got having trouble reading the tea leaves on some of these guys, and it might be a while before we find out where they stand. But let's run through. First of all, Brandon Arrington, Alabama really high on him, but he's off the market. He has eliminated Alabama. He is going to choose between Oregon and Texas A&M, the 5-star athlete. So he's off the board.
Had a great visit, and like I always said, Gary, all these reports you're going to hear after visits. Everybody has a great visit, but we said in our report, look, was it enough? Because we felt like Texas A&M and Oregon came in to that weekend ahead. And Alabama did a fantastic job. It's just he's going to go to one of those two schools.
All right, what about Nick Abrams, the 4-star linebacker out of Owings Mill, Maryland, who I know Alabama's high on him, and he appears to be high on Alabama.
Look, he's another guy, kind of like Arrington, from the sense of Georgia and Michigan were the two teams that when he came into the weekend that we thought Alabama had to make up ground on. Talk to Nick, and if you listen to him, and he seems genuine, Alabama did make up a lot of ground. Now again, is it going to be enough to offset Georgia and Michigan? We'll see.
All right, let's talk about a defensive lineman that it looks to me, Rodney, like Alabama leads on Elijah Golden out of Sarasota, Florida. 6'3", 265, really athletic. Obviously, probably will put on some more weight. I think, who knows, maybe they'll play him on the edge. But this is a guy that's apparently getting close to a decision. And Alabama, are they the front runner here?
I think defensive line, Gary, is a real key in this recruiting class. And Elijah Golden's a great player. He visited Oklahoma. I like to talk to people at other places around the country. At Oklahoma, for example, Notre Dame. The feel is that he's been a guy that's not really tipping his hand anywhere he goes. Now he's got that visit coming up to Notre Dame this weekend. That'll be a really big visit. Most people think that when it comes down to it, it'll either be Alabama or Notre Dame.
All right, we know how this staff on offense is going to use the tight end. They're going to use tight ends. They really like throwing to them. Obviously, blocking's important too, but they're looking for guys that can get down the field, create mismatches. Roman Voss out of Minnesota appears to be that guy. High school quarterback, but he's 6'4", 220 out of Jackson, Minnesota. Plays defense as well as quarterback in high school, but he projects as a tight end, and this is down to two schools, Alabama and the home state Minnesota Golden Gophers.
Yeah, and obviously there's a lot of allegiance there in Minnesota, and he being the #1 player in the state. You mentioned he does play quarterback, but he is projected as a tight end. He's got all the tools. Again, he's, the great height, the athleticism, and all of those things, Gary. I think he'll make a decision relatively soon. You said it, Alabama or Minnesota. It's going to be a tough call for him. Again, the allegiance is home state, but also don't forget now, his sister went to Sioux Falls, so they followed Kalen DeBoer for a long, long time. We'll see. This is going to be a really close call for him. Right, he is the #1 player in Minnesota, by the way.
Yeah, absolutely. Let's run down some other top prospects that Alabama is recruiting very intensely and would like to get. Obviously, I think the best player in the state is Cedarian Morgan, the wide receiver out of Benjamin Russell in Alex City, Alabama. You think's the front runner. Now Auburn's they're gonna take this down to the wire if they can, because that's Benjamin Russell's got a strong history with the Auburn Tigers.
I know you're worried about Auburn. Okay, look, Florida, he had a great visit there too. So when you're a 5-star player, you take nothing for granted. I do like Alabama's position, but like I said, I'm not taking anything for granted. He's supposed to make his announcement in July. I think it's July 5th. Off the top of my head, Gary. Right now, I'd have him in my Firecracker 5.
All right. That means you would predict him to go to Alabama. All right, 5-star safety, Dry Edwards of Baltimore.
I like Alabama's position. A great safety, one of the top two or three safeties in the country. Alabama's done a fantastic job. I'll say this again, Gary. Does anybody recruit the secondary better than Alabama?
No, not right now.
Yep.
5-star linebacker, Xavier Griffin of Gainesville, Georgia. We've talked a lot about the connections. He plays for Josh Niblett. He's got a teammate that's come over there who is already committed to Alabama. Alabama looks like the leader in the clubhouse right here.
What did I say, though, last week? I said he visited Ohio State. He really liked it there. Of course, he had a great visit to Alabama the weekend before, or this past weekend leading up to our last show. Now, Gary, he goes to Texas last weekend, and I told you, you go to Austin, funny things happen. I'm really worried about the Longhorns here. I think it's going to come down to Alabama and Texas.
Yeah, they're persuasive, no doubt about that. Crowell, the running back out of Jackson, in-state target who's reclassified to be part of the 2026 class.
Yeah, and he comes here this weekend. He and Sedarian Morgan will be here on their official visits. I like Alabama's position with him.
Let me ask you about the defensive lineman out of Picayune, Mississippi, Nolan Wilson, and also the defensive lineman out of St. Louis, Titan Davis. Both these guys, Alabama's been working really hard on.
Yeah, they have, and they've been here, obviously, on visits. Nolan Wilson, I did speak to someone at Ole Miss, close to Ole Miss last night. They said when he came in on his visit there last weekend, they didn't get a feel for where Nolan Wilson was going to end up. So I think, right now, I still like Alabama. Auburn's in there really strongly as well.
And
you said Titan Davis. Let me
from St. Louis, right?
Yeah, Titan Davis is a fantastic player. It's Alabama or Michigan.
Right.
Now he's got to visit the Michigan this weekend. It's going to prove really crucial.
All right, and you've got the linebacker out of North Laconia, Georgia, Kamari Brooks, announcing that he is going to make an announcement on where he's going, either Alabama or Georgia next week.
Could Alabama pull an upset here?
I don't know.
Man, I tell you, it's really hard
I'm
to
going to go with Georgia.
Yeah. But Alabama's done well. I mean, they've got the #1 cornerback in the country out of the state of Georgia right now. Jordan Edmonds committed. They do a really good job. You know what? Common sense tells you got to go with Kirby here, but who knows?
Yeah, we'll see you next week. All right, what a heck of a recruiting update that is. All right, still to come on Tider Insider Television, Alabama basketball gets a player out of the transfer portal. You'll certainly recognize his name. There's some family ties there. And Alabama makes Chris Fleming's hire official. This was something we told you about a couple weeks ago, but the newest assistant coach for the Crimson Tide will tell you all about him. And a little bit later on, we'll get in your phone calls, emails, and tweets. As always, that phone number, 205-348-WVOA. That's 348-9882. Let's get those phone calls rolling in tonight because we are jam-packed on Tider Insider TV. Alabama men's basketball has added a new player to the roster, and he's got a familiar name. Preston Murphy Jr. is joining the Crimson Tide. His dad, Preston Murphy, is an assistant for the Tide and Alabama's top recruiter. Now, this guy's a nice player in his own right. He spent a couple of years with the New Orleans Privateers before transferring to Northern Oklahoma College. In 28 games, he averaged 14.4 points, 4.1 assists, and 3.4 rebounds, and shot 42% from the field. And about 6'1", so some more depth for the Alabama backcourt, and certainly like father, like son. Keep them happy. Keep it in the family here for Alabama. Welcome back to TITV, presented by Visit Tuscaloosa. Alongside Rodney Orr, I'm Gary Harris. And Alabama basketball also, Rodney, looking for some big folks for the future. And there's not many out there in the country bigger than the guy we're going to tell you about. Collins Onyejiaka will be on campus tomorrow. 6'10", 270 pounds. He's the number 57 overall prospect in the basketball class of 2026. And Onyejiaka, that's my pronunciation, I think it's right, brings his build and frame to the table. Got athleticism for his size. Probably is a guy who probably does need to lose a little weight, but as you can see, Rodney, he carries it well. This kind of size, man, it's and he's still learning the game. Now, his visit list, or his offer list, I should say, is not what you would call just major, but it's good. Alabama, Bryant, George Mason, Illinois, and Indiana. But watching a little bit of video of this guy, Rodney, I like this guy a lot.
Well, I tell you, he's an intimidating force on the inside. I mean, you better not bring it in there. It's swatted away. You can see the raw skills there.
Yeah, I think he's raw a little bit, but I'm glad Alabama's on him. And again, when you look at what Alabama's doing right now in basketball, just about anybody that's reached out to by Alabama is going to pay attention, but just what little bit I've read, I think he fits this system well. As I said, maybe needs to take off a little bit of weight, but I'm going to keep an eye on him, and I think you should keep an eye on him too. And as far as Preston Murphy Jr. is concerned, again, just adding a little depth there, but it's a perfect opportunity. They got a roster spot available. Why not go ahead and put the son of your assistant coach on the roster?
He looked like on the video he could really shoot. Shoot the three, drive, dish. He can do it all.
And we know shooting the three. That's a big part of this. And as we reported a few weeks back, it's now official. Alabama men's basketball head coach Nate Oates announced yesterday the hiring of Chris Fleming as an assistant coach. Fleming comes to Tuscaloosa over more than a decade. of coaching in the NBA as an assistant. Most recently, he served as an assistant with the Portland Trailblazers during the 2024-2025 season. Also worked for Billy Donovan with the Chicago Bulls. And again, Alabama runs an NBA system, a lot of NBA influence, and it's obvious that Nate Oates likes to have coaches with NBA experience on his staff, at least one.
Good fit.
Yeah, it is a good fit, and it looks good for Alabama and this gentleman coming here to join the staff. All right, Alabama baseball. There is some roster turnover, as you would expect. Alabama, of course, like all these teams, dipping into the portal. But let's start with guys coming back. It's been reported that Justin LeBron will return, not go into the portal, the star shortstop. And this is a lot like LeBaron Fallon. If LeBron comes back, you're not going to add a player from anywhere that's better than this guy. So this is first and foremost the priority for this coaching staff is keeping Justin
Huge.
LeBron. Yeah.
I mean, that's, we talked about that last week. I mean, to be able to keep him it's massive.
Pitching-wise, Zane Adams and Riley Quick, both attending the MLB Draft Combine. Quick, we think, is probably going to go to the draft. We will see for sure, but looks like he's going to be a pretty high pick. Zane Adams, we're not sure on, and we have not heard much about his situation. Is he going to come back to Alabama? Is he going to stay in the draft? Is he going to the transfer portal? I know he didn't pitch a lot in the postseason. Got one inning in at the SEC tournament, did not pitch at all at the regional. Obviously, that would have changed if Alabama had not gone out and lost both games. But still, this is a guy who went into the season as your Friday night starter, Rodney. I'd like to see Zane Adams come back. But regardless, Alabama is going to the portal. Let's talk about some of the additions real quickly. Caden Humphrey, right-handed pitcher from North Florida. And then yesterday, Evan Steckmesser, a left-handed pitcher from Sanford for bullpen depth. Rodney, you can't get enough left-handed pitching.
We've been saying it for weeks. I mean, when we talked about what do you look for in the portal, what is Alabama going to focus on, we talked about they needed more arms. They needed depth. They needed the bullpen. They needed to address that, and they've done it.
Yeah, also adding Matthew Tippie, right-handed pitcher from Texas State. Brendan Holden, infielder from South Alabama. And so Alabama doing well in the portal. All right, still to come on TITV. Alabama Track and Field scores a pair of national titles in Oregon. We'll take a look back at the NCAA Outdoor Championships. And let's get to your phone calls. Phone lines are open. I'm told that every week here lately. I don't like that. Let's fill those phone lines up. 205-348-9882. Used to we had our regulars, man. Sammy, the Tomato Man, CB. I mean, it goes on and on. Where have they all been here lately? Let's get
BT?
BT. Let's get the phone calls rolling in on Tider Insider TV. We'll be right back. Alabama Track and Field stars had great success at the NCAA National Outdoor Championships over the weekend in Eugene, Oregon. 2 national titles for the Tide. Doris Lemengole is absolutely outstanding. She made history as the first woman in NCAA history at the outdoor meet in the steeplechase to break 9 minutes. And obviously she's the NCAA champion. That's the fastest time in the world this year. And Samuel Ogazi, all he did was win the 400 meters national championship, becoming the first Alabama track star since the legendary Karani James to take home the national championship in that event. Obviously both the first team All-Americans. Congratulations to Doris and to Samuel. And welcome back into TITV with Rodney Orr. I'm Gary Harris. Let's jump out on the phone lines. And we got Rick from over in Brent. Hey, Rick.
Hey, how are y'all tonight?
Doing great.
Right. Is it true that we lost Fitzpatrick's brother to Georgia, or is that just a bad rumor? Or does he even have a brother that's going to Georgia?
Rick, he does, and he is committed to Georgia. And, of course, Kirby Smart coached D'Amica here at Alabama. He's a fine player. I'm not sure, Rodney, and you can correct me if I'm wrong. I don't know that – I know Alabama had interest and talked with him, but I don't know that there was ever a firm offer there from the Crimson Tide.
Well, here's the thing, Rick, when you look at it, he is a top-notch corner, but when you've got
Alabama's loaded.
Jordan Edmonds committed, you've got Zion Gibson committed out of Gadsden City, 2 of the top 5-6 corners in the country. You've got Chuck McDonald from last year. You've got Dejon Lee from last year. You've got Cam Calhoun, who transferred from Utah. You got Xavier Brown. The future looks bright. You can't have them all.
Can't take them all.
And he does have a relationship. Kaminka did play a year for Kirby, as a defense coordinator here. So, that happens.
It's like you told me one time I was asking about a player. He was a good player, in-state player. You know how many in-state players? And I said, I wish Alabama take him. And you said, well, who are you going to not take to take him? Yeah. You can't take them all. All right, thank you, Rick. All right, we're going to come back with our email question of the day. Also, phone lines are open at 9882. So go ahead and give us a call. We'll be back with more Tighter Insider TV after this timeout. Love stories like this. We were at Deron Payne's football camp yesterday over at his old high school, Shades Valley High School there in Irondale. Of course, All-American defensive tackle for Alabama, now a really fine defensive tackle for the Washington Commanders. What I like about this most, Rodney, it was free.
Wow.
Didn't cost anything for the campers to attend. It's supported by a grant from the NFL Foundation, which makes it even that much more neat. But something else I really like, Deron Payne wasn't just watching or sitting under a tent with a Gatorade. He was out there coaching on the field. So great experience for the campers. And he told us that one of the keys that he wanted to pass along to these kids is, since he played at Alabama and he's playing in the NFL, he wanted them to know what he did to work in drills on the field at Alabama and in the NFL. Wanted them to experience that. So really, really cool and good for Deron Payne to get back. All right, welcome back into TITV. It's time for our email question of the day, and it's brought to you by KDM Service Corporation when it comes to heating and air conditioning, serving your family like our family. Is Alabama going to build a new basketball arena? That's from Tiffany and Hoover. That's a question I still get a lot. The answer is yes and no, and let me explain. Alabama is in the process right now of building a state-of-the-art training facility. It's going to have everything, Rodney. It's going to have nutrition. It's going to have study hall there. It'll have even more basketball courts. In fact, the current men's basketball practice facility that's shared with the women will be exclusive for the women. But this facility they're building is going to have academic center, and it's where they're going to be spending most of their time. So right now, as we deal with the NIL, I think the feeling was that the playing area, Coleman Coliseum, is still fine. Let's build this state-of-the-art training facility, and that's what they're doing.
I think that's what Nate Oates wanted. He wanted this training facility, and I think they felt like that was the priority over the arena at this point.
And if you get down here, Tiffany, drive by Coleman Coliseum. You can see where they're building it and connecting it to Coleman Coliseum. It is going to be something special. All right, thanks for the email question of the day. Thanks for the phone call that we had from Rick. We're going to come back and wrap up this edition of Tighter Insider TV right after this. After another Elite Eight appearance, Coach Oates will be busy this summer coaching for the USA Under-19 team. It was announced yesterday that Coach Oates was named a on-the-court coach for the national team. Only North Carolina's Hubert Davis and Kentucky's Mark Pope will be the other coaches. So this is pretty impressive, and why not? This guy's a heck of a basketball coach. Congratulations to Coach Oates. And that's going to do it for this edition of Tighter Insider TV, brought to you by Visit Tuscaloosa. Don't forget, if you missed any of tonight's show, you can catch the replay tonight at 10:30, following the news at 10, or online anytime at WVUA23.com. We're going to leave you with some video from former Alabama basketball star Richard Hendricks having his youth basketball camp in North Alabama on Saturday. Have a good night, everybody.